Hello, my name is Angelo and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about steel-cased ammunition. So, now you're kind of asking, what brought this up? What really brought this up is that I was watching a video, it was an older video, of a gentleman named Chris. He runs the YouTube channel Regular Training Guy LLC or something like that. And I'll post his video down in the description below. And he talks about steel-cased ammunition and he references Lucky Gunner's video. So basically, to kind of summarize the Lucky Gunner video is that they took the top 4 steel case ammunition, so Winchester, Tula, Barnell, and Wolf, I believe, or Bear and Wolf, and they ran a 10,000 round torture test to see how much steel actually wears down the parts. And basically what had happened is that at around 6,000 rounds is when pretty much all the barrels were shot out. And then they kind of also discussed their malfunctions and how dirty the rifles were and all that sorts of stuff. Now, going back to Chris's video, he talks about steel case ammunition and how even though this torture test is valid, it is not a good representation of the average shooter. The average shooter is not going to go dump 10,000 rounds in a day or two and do it at a very high rate of fire and really heat up the barrel. Because it has been stated in both Chris's video and in the Lucky Gunner video, they have shot so quickly and so much to the point where they had to take time to let the guns cool because they were getting so hot that were not safe to handle. So, with that being said, the argument is steel worth it over brass? And in my opinion, it's not that much of an opinion because at this point people have kind of over discussed it, it depends. And now that seems kind of like a cop-out, and I understand, but it really just does depend. It depends, do you shoot at an indoor range? Do you shoot at a range that does not allow steel? Do you shoot at steel targets? Do you never clean your weapon? These are all questions that you need to answer to dictate if shooting steel ammunition is good for you. And then also on top of that, one thing that I didn't add is, are you shooting for precision or are you shooting for competition? That again is another reason why you may or may not use steel ammunition. So for me personally, in my opinion, steel ammunition is great. For what I do at the range, which is primarily drills, short distance drills, usually at about 100 yards for a rifle, and anywhere from 10 yards to 25 yards with a pistol, steel ammunition is great. What am I doing? So with a rifle at 100 yards, or if I'm shooting at paper, closer than that, I am doing drills. Hammer pairs, which is 2 shots, 1 sight picture, or controlled pairs, which is 1 shot, 1 sight picture twice, or we'll say like a failure to stop drill, which is 2 shots to the chest, 1 shot to the pelvic, or I'm doing a headshot, which is just 1 shot to the head. Like for these drills, I don't need an excessive amount of precision to do them. Now, if the case of the box of ammunition or the case of ammunition is not allowing me to do that, that is one thing. But if I'm hitting within that kind of A-frame that I'm aiming for, then the steel ammunition is perfect and it's cheap. So what are some of the major cons outside of the ones that I've already said about steel case ammunition? Well, the main one is that it has a bimetal jacket. So if you like shooting at steel targets, you kind of run a risk of safety there. You don't necessarily know what's in the bimetal jacket that's underneath the copper in the steel case, in the steel ammo, I should say. Not in, well, technically it's in the steel case too, but in the steel ammo, you don't know what's there. So you don't know how that's going to ricochet off the steel. If you shoot competition or if you shoot precision, like I said earlier, steel case is kind of a no-go for you. Because if you shoot at an indoor range, for an example, they don't allow steel case because of the ricochet. If you shoot at competition, the steel cased ammo might not be even good enough for you, assuming the competition even allows it in the first place. Also, finally, there is kind of the myth about lacquer, and again, the Chris's video kind of goes more in depth about that. That's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I personally, after shooting a few thousand rounds of steel case through various guns, have never seen like any form of like my gun gumming up and performing less efficiently because of steel case ammo. If it's performing less efficiently because of steel case ammo, it is the quality of the ammo and not because of some other external external factor from the steel case itself. Lacquer and polymer did not make my gun run worse. The actual ammunition, because of the low grade powder, did. With that being said, in the 2,000 to 3,000 rounds that I've used the steel case, I've never had a squib load. I have had malfunctions that I have induced myself, or because of, again, a bad round. So basically what I'm getting at here is that if you have the opportunity to shoot steel case, I personally think that you should. And here's the reason why. A few reasons why. One, it's significantly cheaper pre-COVID, and I'm sure it will be post-COVID. But steel case ammunition, pre-COVID, you could buy 1,000 rounds for about $120, $130. You could buy 1,000 rounds of brass for about $150, $160. Now, if you are training as often as you might be, because if you weren't training super often, this kind of is a moot point for you. If you were shooting thousands of rounds consistently, steel case is awesome because it's cheap. And chances are you're cleaning your rifle all the time anyway. So the extra buildup that you get from steel case isn't as relevant as it would be for a more part-time shooter. Now, if you're only shooting 1,000 rounds a year, at this point it doesn't really matter. You can go steel case or brass because you're not shooting enough to have an excessive wear on your parts. Again, this is what Chris was talking about, to really worry about replacing your parts soon. So, but if you're like him, who runs training courses and who shoots a lot, steel case is great because you can sit there and just shoot all day. And for the most part, with the cost savings, depending on the part, for the cost savings that you get for shooting steel case, you can replace those parts with the money you saved, assuming you saved. And that's kind of where he gets at in that video. He also talks about more about how steel cased is different between calibers and how steel case kind of reacts differently with different weapon systems like the AR and the AK. But that's, again, outside of my wheelhouse, so I'm not going to talk about that. But what I am going to talk about is pretty much what is steel case for then if it can't be used at range, you can't use it at a range, you can't really use it at range, you can't use it in competition, and it makes your gun dirtier. So, and it's a lower grade ammunition, so it could malfunction, and it could cause squib loads, and it has all these other connotations to it. So why would you run it? It's because it's cheap. It's because if you are training and you want to cut cost so you can train more, and you are doing things that don't require an excessive amount of precision, this is a great solution. Now, with that being said, there is one caveat to all of this. If you like supporting communists and Russians, this may not be the alternative for you, or this is the greatest alternative for you, because almost all of the steel case stuff outside of Winchester and Brownell is all Russian made. It's all imported. But sadly, it's still cheaper than those two American brands, even though they're made here. So if you like supporting communists and Russians, this is great. If you don't, this may question your purchase. Again, personally, I bought this during the COVID pandemic, and this is all I got. Like, unless I want to pay way more for brass, this is what's there, and this is what's cheap, so that's what I'm buying. Now, before this, normally I'm running Wolf. And again, it's hard because at the time when I was running Wolf, I couldn't really afford brass, and the cost of buying Winchester or Brownell was still significant to me. Going past the pandemic, now that I'm in a better financial situation, I'm not going to be buying this crap anymore. I'm going to be buying probably Winchester steel or Brownell steel, or I might just be buying brass from this point on. And that's okay too. If you can financially afford to buy brass, then buy brass. If you are just trying to get, pretty much what I'm saying is that if you are just trying to get the best value for your money, for your training, steel is probably the way to go, unless there's another factor that you need to put in that would prevent you from having steel. So in summary, what I'm saying, this is what you need to know about steel. According to Chris, and technically Lucky Gunner, as long as you are not burning out your barrel whenever you go to the range, steel will not damage your weapons more than brass will. And if it does, you'll have enough cost savings in cost to replace these parts. If you're not doing precision things, or precision drills, I should say, you don't need brass to do that. You can do that with steel. If you are uh, trying to really learn the fundamentals, steel is great because now you're not dumping money into buying brass and having to extend this training regimen because you can't buy as much as once. I mean, at the end of the day, it's personal preference, just like everything else in the gun community. But if you're trying to save money to train more, steel is the way to go. Now, again, with that being said, because of the nature of steel and the bimetal coat that's underneath the copper jacket, steel is actually very limiting. Most training classes don't allow steel, most ranges don't allow steel, and most competitions, if not all competitions, do not allow steel because either the range doesn't or the competition itself doesn't. But on your own time, in your own place, and keep in mind too, I'm not really talking about the beginner shooter for the most part. I am talking about a dedicated, near full time shooter. Someone like Chris who is literally putting, anywhere from 1,000 rounds a month to 10,000 rounds a month. Someone where like buying the difference between buying Tula and buying Winchester White Box or buying normal budget brass is actually a huge cost savings. Again, if you're that person that shoots 1,000 rounds a year, if you're that person that shoots 100 rounds a year, at that point, this entire video is kind of moot for you. But hey, I'd love to know what you think, and go ahead and comment below, and I'll see y'all in the next one.